Look, I spent 22 years of my professional life at one of the world's largest auditing firms, auditing the accounts of ultra-wealthy families, the mysterious family offices that you cannot even imagine. I personally witnessed, through documents and trial balances, why a man with more than $50 million in his bank account still drove a 12-year-old car, while his neighbor, living in a luxury district, secretly cried at night because he could not make the $1,400 monthly payment on the massive pickup truck parked in front of his house. Most people sell their time to earn money. 9 to 5, traffic, meetings, endless emails. But today, I am going to tell you about one of the greatest paradoxes in economics. In reality, time buys your money. Money is not merely stored labor. When used correctly, it is a tool that gives you back your most precious treasure, your life. Today, using the economic data of 2026, we will discuss why simple and unwaveringly boring habits create millionaires, and how you can achieve freedom through a simple financial architecture that you build for yourself. Look, the greatest tragedy I witnessed at auditing desks was this. Economics textbooks tell us that we are Homo economicus. Supposedly, we are robots who calculate every penny and always make the most rational decision. But the reality I saw while auditing the accounts of ultra-wealthy family offices for 22 years was completely different. We are not rational beings. We are emotional beings. Behavioral economics has proven that our brains operate with two different operating systems. System 1 is that primitive, fast, and reflexive part of us that helped us survive for millions of years. When it sees a 50% discount in a store window or a shiny new toy in the neighbor's yard, it immediately says, "Buy it." System 2, on the other hand, is an auditor like me. It is slow, analytical, and weighs risks carefully. The problem is that when you swipe that credit card through the payment terminal, System 2 is usually fast asleep. Because of that sneaky enemy we call decision fatigue, by the time you return home from work in the evening, the auditor in your brain has resigned and handed complete control over to System 1. That is the moment when, with the phrase, "I deserve this," you begin mortgaging your future. It took me years to understand why some of the families I audited, despite having $50 million sitting in cash in their bank accounts, still drove 12-year-old Japanese cars. Then I understood. They had nothing to prove to anyone. But out there, on the streets, a massive financial theater is being performed. Look at the leading actors, those pickup trucks we call Pavement Princesses. Giant, gleaming machines with enormous tires shining brightly in the middle of the city, never having touched mud. These vehicles are not a display of power, they are a tragedy of installments. When I look at the trial balance of the man playing the role of a wealthy person behind that steering wheel, I see the $1,400 monthly payment that keeps him awake at night. These people are the greatest victims of the high-income poverty trap. Their incomes may be extremely high. They may earn $100,000 a month, but their expenses are $105,000. In their effort to appear rich, they have already thrown into the air the very capital that could have made them truly wealthy, their unspent money. People think wealth is money that has been spent. Yet the reality I saw as an auditor is this: true wealth is the money you do not spend. Those mechanisms of status, triggered by social media and social pressure, pull you into the trap of fake rich. While the real estate market was peaking in 2025 and 2026, I saw people committing 40% of their income to 30-year mortgages simply to live at a prestigious address. In financial literature, we call this opportunity cost. In other words, while you commit your money to one place, it is the return from all the other possibilities you are giving up. While you are making payments on that luxury pickup truck or enormous house, you are not merely paying money. Because you are not allowing that money to work through index funds or the power of compound returns, you are actually surrendering your future freedom. While you think you own an object, that object is buying 15 years of your future.
In my 22-year career, I observed that the wealthiest people were often the ones who lived the simplest lives, because their greatest luxury was the power to say no. Those performing in financial theater, however, can never say no. They are forced to say yes to jobs they do not want because the payment on that Pavement Princess parked outside is due. They are forced to bow before a manager they despise because the mortgage on that house in a luxury neighborhood has become a leash around their neck. This is how time buys your money. You think you are buying things with money, but those things condemn your time to a life of wage slavery. True wealth is not the number in your bank account, it is the freedom that number gives you to avoid doing things you do not want to do. I want you to ask yourself, do you own your money or do your possessions own you?
Now let me explain the most typical summary of the trial balances I audited over 22 years through two real-life cases, William and Michael. Both are 30 years old, bright young engineers at the beginning of their careers. It is 2026, and both are starting life with a net monthly income of $20,000. From the outside, they look exactly the same, but when viewed through the eyes of an auditor, the asset column in one balance sheet begins to grow, while the liability column in the other starts to swell. William is the one who falls into the status standard trap. He listens to the poisonous phrase whispered by society and social media. If you are successful, you should live in a big house. It is 2026, a period when real estate prices have become a bubble and borrowing costs have reached their peak. Just to appear successful, William signs a massive 30-year mortgage that consumes 40% of his income, or $8,000 per month. There are celebrations that day for William. Ribbons are cut and congratulations are offered. But when I see that signature, I write the following in my audit report. William has sentenced the most productive 15 years of his life to imprisonment within the four walls of that house. Now, let's look at the other file, Michael's. Michael follows the strategy of those simple millionaires I have audited. He chooses the simple and unwavering path. He continues living in his current modest home. Without even relying on his own willpower, he sets up an automatic instruction directing the $4,000 monthly difference, the amount William spends on his luxury home, into a broad-based index fund. What Michael is doing here represents one of the most critical concepts in financial literature, opportunity cost. In other words, when you commit a resource to one place, you calculate the return of the best alternative you are giving up. While William uses that $4,000 to make payments on concrete, Michael uses the same money to become a partner in the profits of the world's largest companies. In Michael's balance sheet, time works for him. In William's balance sheet, time makes him a little more of the bank's servant every day. With 22 years of experience, I can say this. William thinks he owns his money, but in reality, that house has come to own William's future lifetime.
Mathematics does not lie, but people lie with numbers.
Let us travel 30 years into the future, to the year 2056. Audit day has arrived. William is now 60 years old. He has finished paying off his 30-year debt and finally holds the title deed in his hands. The people around him tell him, "How lucky you are! Look how much your house has increased in value over 30 years." This is what we call the nominal value illusion. Yes, the house price has risen on paper, but against the time value of money and inflation, William has not actually become wealthier.
All he possesses is a pile of concrete and a tired body worn down by 30 years of mortgage payments. Now let us examine Michael's account. Through the quiet power of compound returns, Michael benefited from automatically investing that boring $4,000 every month. Assuming a real annual return of 7% after inflation, at the end of 30 years, Michael has accumulated a fortune worth exactly $1.3 million in today's purchasing power. The difference is not just a number. It is a $1.3 million life mistake. At age 60, Michael no longer has to work because of the passive income generated by this capital. He used his money to buy back his time. William, meanwhile, is still trapped in the 9-to-5 cycle in order to pay his bills. William's desire to look successful 30 years earlier has imposed an additional 15 years of work upon him.
When I sit at the audit desk, I do not only see numbers. I also see the effect those numbers have on the human spirit, the visceral cost. The price William paid was not merely $8,000 a month. He surrendered the future time he could have spent with his children, his hobbies, the vacations he dreamed of taking. In short, he gave up his freedom. Because never forget this, money can be printed endlessly. Governments do it every day. But time is the only resource that cannot be replaced, purchased, or stored. William used his money to buy an illusion of status. Michael used his money to become the owner of his time. Throughout my 22-year career, I observed that this was the greatest secret of the ultra-wealthy. They never sell their time for the sake of a status standard. For them, true wealth is not the size of the number in the bank account, but the amount of time that number gives them to say no to a job they do not want. At the end of this chapter, I leave you with a question. In your balance sheet, is time listed under the liability column or under the asset column?
Enough! The $1.3 million mistake we saw in William's balance sheet in Chapter 2 was not simply a lack of discipline problem. Let me tell you the harshest truth from my 22-year auditing career. If you base your financial plan solely on willpower, you have essentially guaranteed your failure from the very beginning. What financial gurus tell you, be stronger, don't spend, is like telling a ship captain, hold the wheel tighter in a storm. But that captain gets tired, loses sleep, and eventually his hands weaken. Neuroscience and behavioral economics have proven that willpower is a limited resource that depletes throughout the day. You may feel extremely disciplined in the morning, but when you return home in the evening, exhausted and stressed, the rational auditor in your brain, System 2, flips the switches off. At that moment, full control is handed over to System 1, the primitive and pleasure-driven system. That famous "I deserve this after such a hard day" spending is actually the bankruptcy declaration of your willpower. The difference I observed among millionaires I audited was not that they had stronger willpower. It was that they built systems that did not require willpower at all. So how do we build this architecture? The first rule is the most powerful weapon of anyone on the path to financial freedom. Automate the rule of pay yourself first. Most people do it like this. The salary arrives, they pay rent, pay bills, cover credit cards, and say, "I'll save whatever is left at the end of the month." From thousands of account statements I have audited, I can tell you this: that money is never left over, because the human mind is programmed to consume available resources. You must reverse the architecture completely. The moment your income hits your account, before you even touch it, the system must automatically transfer it into investment accounts. In 2026, fully utilize private pension systems, BES, and tax-advantaged fund limits like a tax auditor would. Money must exit the system before it becomes spendable. This is the first step of disabling willpower and replacing it with an unshakable mechanism.
When I sat at audit desks, I saw that people make the most mistakes during the decision-making phase. Every month, asking yourself, which stock should I buy this month, gold or dollar, exhausts your brain and leaves you vulnerable to the impulses of System 1. True wealth builders reduce decision fatigue to zero. They set up automatic purchase orders through broad-based index funds or professionally managed portfolios. They do not look at prices. They do not listen to market fluctuations. The system builds wealth every month with a boring but lethal discipline, independent of emotions. Remember, even professional players, when trying to beat the market through active decisions, lose 98% of the time. Build the system and let it make the boring decisions for you.
The third component of your architecture is defining every single dollar's job in advance, like a company balance sheet. This is called zero-based budgeting. If a dollar does not have a predefined purpose, it will most likely fall victim to the instant appetite of System 1. The auditor's prescription is as follows. 1. Allocate 50% to necessities, rent, bills, food. 2. Allocate 30% to flexible spending. Enjoy life, but do not exceed this limit. 3. Allocate 20% strictly to the future, debt repayment or investments that buy your freedom. These ratios are your seatbelt. If William had known this architecture, he would have understood that allocating 40% of his income to a mortgage was essentially placing dynamite at the foundation of his own financial structure. The final and most subtle step of the architecture is psychological invisibility. Separate your investment accounts completely from your daily spending accounts, and ideally do not constantly check those balances. Constantly living with the numbers leads you to scarcity mindset and impulsive panic decisions. The truth I have seen over 22 years is this: the rich make money and systems work for them. The poor exhaust their willpower chasing money every day. This simple but solid architecture you build will make millions of decisions on your behalf over 30 years. And at the end of those 30 years, like Michael in Chapter 2, you will own something far more valuable than the number in your bank account: full ownership of your own time. Now prepare your balance sheets, because in the next chapter, we will talk about the simple and unwavering habits we will build on top of this architecture. Your social media is probably filled with crypto signals and flashy strategies promising 50% returns per month. But my 22 years of auditing experience tell me this: real wealth is built on simple, unwavering, and seemingly boring habits. The silent power of compound interest. Think of money as a seed planted in the ground. If you keep digging it up and replanting it elsewhere, chasing quick profits, it will never grow into a forest that bears fruit. Low-cost index funds. Even professional players lose 98% of the time when trying to beat the market. Become a partner in the entire economic engine, the companies that drive the economy, and leave it untouched for 5 to 10 years without giving in to the impulses of System 1. Emergency fund. Keeping 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash is not money sitting idle. It buys you the luxury of not making mistakes. It protects you from forced, emotional financial decisions. Debt snowball. Start with the smallest debt and eliminate it. The dopamine released when you cross out that small debt is not just a psychological reward. It is a behavioral weapon that helps you win the real battle, which is not mathematics, but behavior change. The final destination you reach when time buys your money is this: the ability to say no to a job, a person, or a situation you do not want. Wealth is not the number in your bank account.
It is the amount of free time that number gives you. A truly rich person is someone who wakes up every morning and can answer the question, "What do I want to do with my time today?" with their own choice. Time is the most fair resource in the universe. Everyone, rich or poor, is given 24 hours a day. But how you use money determines how much of those 24 hours you actually own. Make a choice today. Stop trusting your willpower and build your system. Do not surrender to lifestyle inflation. Remember, within today's $1 lies the seed of your future freedom. If you enjoyed this video and want to build systems on your journey to financial freedom, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Manage your time well because it is your only true capital. Time is the most fair resource in the universe. Everyone is given equally 24 hours a day to both the rich and the poor. But how you use money determines how much of those 24 hours you actually own. Make a choice today. Stop relying on willpower and build your system. Do not surrender to lifestyle inflation. Choose the path that is boring but mathematically unshakable. Remember, today's $1 is always more valuable than tomorrow's $1. Because within today's money lies the seed of your future freedom. If you enjoyed this video and want to build systems on your journey to financial freedom, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Manage your time well because it is your only true capital.